Morning, buenos dias, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our Erasmus Plus Capacity Building CALESA project. This is our second day in a week-long series of lectures on the application of the principles of the Bologna process to university academic programs. We are here today in person at the Malcolm Theater, University of the Philippines College of Law in Diliman. We are also live and streaming online via Zoom for the benefit of our colleagues who will be joining us remotely. I am Professor Jacqueline Espinilla from the UP Law Center, and I will be your host today. We are privileged today to be in the presence of brilliant minds from the UP College of Law, the University of Malaga, the Nova School of Law, and the University College Dublin. But before we start, please allow me to recognize our guests of honor joining us here today. With us, we have Judge Mia Joy Kawed from the Regional Trial Court of Baguio. We also have Ruth Bawayan, Judge of the Municipal Trial Court and also from the University of Baguio. We also have Micaela Josilios from the Philippine Judicial Academy, Professor Glenda Litong from the UPTCD, Mr. Jamil Adrian Khalil Matalam of the University of Southeastern Philippines School of Law, Ms. Maria Julfa Maningas from the Manila Adventist College School of Law and Jurisprudence, Lorenzo Reyes from the Legal Education Board, Israelito Torion from the Jose Maria College Foundation, Inc. College of Law, Devery Jean Katrina Tumilba from the Philippine Judicial Academy Supreme Court, Professor Victoria Luanzon from the UP College of Law, and VP Danny Uy from the University of the Philippines. We are also here they're here attending as representatives from the following government agencies. So with us here are representatives from the Ateneo de Manila University School of Law, Ateneo de Naga College of Law, Jose Maria College Foundation, Inc. College of Law, the Legal Education Board, Manila Adventist College SLJ, Northeastern Mindanao State University, the Philippine Judicial Academy, Philippine Law School and PUP College of Law, University of Baguio School of Law, the UP College of Education, the UP College of Law, UP Law Center Workers and Employees Program, the UP Confucius Institute, and the UPTCD. So a round of applause for everybody who made it with us here today, in person and online. So thank you very, very much for the time that you are devoting for this activity. Without further ado, let us formally open the second day of our lecture series on the application of the principles of the Bologna process to university academic programs and proceed to today's lecture, The Structure and Functioning of Master and Doctoral Programs and Lifelong Learning. This is by Dr. Miriam Lopez Rodriguez. Dr. Miriam Lopez Rodriguez is an associate professor in the Department of English, French, and German Philology at the University of Malaga, Spain, where she teaches American literature and coordinates the research group on American Studies. Previously, she was a visiting professor at the University of Wolverhampton, Great Britain. After serving as a Deputy Vice President for International Relations and Deputy Vice President for Postgraduate Studies at the University of Malaga, she became the Deputy Vice President for Social Projection, a position she continues to hold to this day. In 2002, Dr. Lopez was awarded by the US government a Fulbright postdoctoral research scholarship, and since then, she has focused most of her research on American women playwrights. Please give a warm round of applause to Dr. Lopez.
And how do I pass the slides? Oh, over here? Okay. I should point over here? Over there? Sorry? Down there you have my email address. It's quite easy, miriam@uma.s. So should you need to contact me or to ask any information, you're welcome to send your messages. Right, yesterday my colleague Chantal Perez explained the origin of the European higher education area that began to be developed in 1999 by 28 European countries, including Spain. And throughout the years, many different countries have been joining the European higher education area. And there are some countries that applied to join, but they were refused acceptance. They were refused entry, mainly for political reasons. As she explained yesterday, the university system within the Bologna system, the Bologna program, is divided into 3 cycles: bachelor, master, and doctoral programs. And then we have also the lifelong learning courses that do not belong to any of the cycles, right? They go along with the 3 cycles, right? So I will explain that a bit later. And in some countries, they call it lifelong learning. In other countries, they call it continuing education. It's the same thing. Right. I will talk first about the master programs. Then I will talk about the doctoral programs, and finally, after I will talk about the continuous education. And basically, the structure for the 3 are the same. I will talk about what is the legal structure of each of these cycles, then a brief explanation of the functioning of them, how they are organized, and finally, I will focus on their internationalization, right? If you don't mind, we keep the questions for the end, when I finish with the 3 levels. Right. If you are planning to create a master program according to Bologna, elements that you must consider are the number of semesters, the number of credits, the number of tracks or paths. In each different countries, they use different terminology, but it's tracks or path, the types of courses, and all the other activities you may want to add to the courses. Okay? Feel free to take photographs of the slides if you want to. Right. That we have a Bologna process for university studies does not mean that all the countries do it exactly the same way. So we find countries where they have decided that the bachelor program is going to take 3 years and the master 2 years. Or for example, in Spain, most degrees take 4 years and master 1 year. Here you have all the possible combinations, right? Of 4 years, and 1 year, or 1 year and a half, or 2 years. But it doesn't really matter, because with the Bologna system, the focus is not in the number of semesters or the number of academic years, but the number of credits. So in countries like Spain, we have a tendency to put all the credits together for the master in just 1 year. Some of the countries say that's too much for the students. We prefer having 3 semesters instead of 2, but the number of credits is going to be at the end the same. It's just the distribution, right? As Chantal explained yesterday, when we began the Bologna process, this is a never-ending revision of what we designed. So we created masters, and then after a few years, we said, okay, how are they working? Let's see what is going well, and we keep it, and let's see what is not going very well, it's not working, and it should be revised. In 2015, the report for the implementation of the Bologna process confirmed that most countries have bachelor degrees that go between 180 and 240 European credits. And the most common model for master degrees are 120 credits. All right? And first, we should know, what is that European credit? What does it consist on? Well, basically, we have to think it's a change of paradigm. In traditional university programs, we focus on the number of hours the teacher spends in class with the students. That's not the case anymore. With the Bologna system, the focus is how many hours does an average student need to pass the course. So one credit amounts around 25 hours of work for an average student. That means that some students could pass the course just with 20 hours, but there will be some students that will need 30 hours. It depends how quick they are, how much they focus or not focus on the work. These 25 hours have to be divided into 7.5 hours in class with the teacher, about 15 hours of studying, reading the material, doing the homework for the next class, plus about 2.5 hours preparing all the exercises, exams, oral presentations that are going to be part of the grading, right? When planning a master program, my advice is, if your course is very theoretical and implies that your student must read a lot before the class, reduce the number of 7.5 hours of teaching so you can increase the hours of reading at home, right? But if your course is very practical, then you can have more teaching hours because there will be less hours of the student preparing the class in advance, right? So that's something you have to take into account. And when we implemented the first master programs, for example, I teach at the English and Multicultural Studies master program. Some of the teachers, after the first year, had to be told, for God's sake, reduce the number of compulsory reading material. There is no way they can read all that in 15 hours. They will never be able to read that. You have to cut down and make some readings compulsory, and some other are just suggested readings, but not compulsory, right? So it takes some adjustment at first for teachers to decide what material to put there and what not to put. Well, regarding the number of tracks or number of paths for your master, you may decide that your master has one single track. You say, I'm going to design a master on international law, and that's it. Or you may decide, I'm designing a master that will have a more professional-oriented courses, and then another path for more research-oriented courses. And so students can choose, right? So you can have a one-track master, two-track masters. If you really feel suicidal, you can do a three marks. You just need to realize that the more combinations you include, you are exponentially increasing the amount of administrative work you have to do for the course, right? So if you don't want all the administrative people in your school to hate you to death, you better keep the number of tracks down, right? It's also going to demand more classrooms at the same time, more teachers teaching at the same time. You complicate things, right? So most masters have just one or maybe two tracks, right? The type of courses. you can decide that your master is formed only by core courses, courses that are compulsory for everybody. Or you may decide some of the courses are going to be compulsory and some of the courses are going to be optional. I'm offering my students 8 optional courses, and I tell them choose 4 out of these 8 courses. Right? Okay? Or you may say, these courses are compulsory for everybody. These courses are compulsory only for students taking track 1, but they are optional for students taking track 2. These courses are optional only for track 1, only optional for track 2, or optional for everybody. My advice is, if you are doing many of these combinations, create a template to make it easy for the student. Otherwise, they will start ticking courses, and you will have to be calling them back later, hey, you chose courses that are not from your track. And it complicates the administrative work, right? I'm going to give you some examples so you can see what I mean with the tracks and the compulsory courses. This will be the easiest model for a master. One single track and all the courses are compulsory. No choosing here. If you enroll in this master in international law, everybody is doing the same thing. Everybody is taking the same courses. That means you need one single classroom for the master, because everybody is going to be together all the time, and one teacher at a time. You may decide, I'm going to do a one-track master with compulsory courses for everybody, and then I provide a selection of optional courses, and they have to choose the 4 optional courses they decide. This can be a little dangerous, because you can end up with 40 students in one optional course and 2 students in another optional course. The best thing to do in this case is to say, the students coming with the best marks from the degree, bachelor degree, choose first. And there are only 20 places in each optional course. So the ones with the best mark choose first, but we know that the students are going to be distributed evenly throughout all the optional courses, right? 2 tracks. The core courses for everybody, and then the optional courses for each track. Let's make it more complicated. Core courses for everybody, then core courses for each track, optional courses for everybody. You can make your life as complicated as you want. According to the Bologna process, what every master must have as a compulsory course to be taken in the last semester of the master is the master thesis. And that's non-negotiable. Everybody must take that course. Okay? And the same happens with the bachelor programs. And for example, in the case of international mobility, the different universities in different countries may have different rules. For example, at the University of Malaga, you must always defend your thesis at the University of Malaga. If you defend it on the other there is no possibility of not doing it because you are going abroad for a semester or whatever, right? The master thesis must always be done, right? What is a master thesis? Well, basically, it's the student's introduction to individual research. For most students, it's the step previous to the doctoral thesis, right? It's like the first time that they are, researching on their own. Depending whether your master is more professional-oriented or more research-oriented, you will give it between 6 and 30 credits, right? So if it's very professional, 6 credits is enough. But if you are preparing your students to undergo afterwards a doctoral program, you will you will make it 30 credits. Always to be taken in the last semester of the master, and it cannot be defended in front of the board until you have passed all the other courses in the program. It's just like the final step before getting your master degree. All teachers teaching in a master program are potential tutors, potential supervisors of master thesis. When a student enrolls in a master program, the master coordinator will provide a list of all the teachers that are taking part in this program and what is their field of expertise. So you may choose which professor you want to be your master thesis supervisor, because you like him, her, or because you like the field of expertise, right? When the student enrolls in the master program, he must have all the information regarding the master thesis requirements. And here you can be as specific as you want. You may say, in this program, all the theses have to be Times New Roman 12, and the separation between lines has to be 1.5. And the margins should be this. And the required chapters should be an introduction, a methodology, and a state of the art, your analysis, your conclusions, the work cited. And you have to specify the work cited and citation method is going to be APA, or is going to be MLA, or is going to be Chicago style, or is going to be Harvard style, right? So you must make very clear for the student what are the requirements. No surprises afterwards, okay? The defense of the master thesis follows basically the same style, the same structure that the defense of the bachelor thesis and the defense of the doctoral thesis. Once the student considers that the thesis is ready, he will give the document, the file, to his or her supervisor, and if the supervisor considers that the work is ready to be defended in front of the board, he or she has to write a supervisor's report saying, I think it's ready for defense, right? And then the master coordinator will prepare a board of 3 members of the other teachers in the program, right? Your supervisor can never be a member of the board evaluating your thesis, all right? And you must make an oral defense in front of the board. The act of the oral defense is a public event. Anybody can attend. Yeah, just to make it easy for the student. And the student will have to be given all the exact information on how long does he have for making the presentation, whether he can or not use PowerPoints, whether he can or not have notes with him, right? All this information, the student must have it beforehand, so there are no surprises, all right? And of course, at the end, when the supervisors write their report, they suggest what they think the grade should be. So from 0 to 10, I consider this student deserves a 5, a 7, whatever. And the board will consider the suggestion, but does not have to follow the suggestion. It's up to the board to decide whether they want to take the grade up or down, right? Sometimes a student has not done a brilliant thesis, but then the oral defense was great. His ability to summarize, to present, to create enthusiasm, the commission will take that into account and bring up the mark. Or the other way around, has a nervous attack and the oral presentation is a complete disaster, and they may or may not decide that that will affect the final grade. Masters may or may not include a course called internship, right? Basically, it consists on the student spending a number of hours at an institution or a company, shadowing a professional within that place. They are, depending on the master, companies and institutions are more or less used to having interns. And so sometimes when you are talking to the institution or the company, you have to explain to them what is an intern. It's not free labor, and it's not here to bring you copies, photocopies, or bring you coffee. They are to be shadowing a professional, learning the job. But it's not, you are getting a free employee for 6 months, come on, go and exploit it. No, we don't provide the slaves, right? And this internship, just like the master thesis, will always be done in the last semester of the master, right? And each student will be provided a tutor at the company or at the institution. That will be his contact, the supervisor when they are at the institution. And at the time the internship finishes, this company tutor must write a report. When we began doing this, we left tutors to write whatever they wanted to write. We said minimum 1 paragraph, maximum 2 pages. And well, that did not always provide us with the right information. So what we have done, at least in my master, is to create a template. Fill this. Commitment with the company, from 0 to 10. Good at individual work, 0 to 10. Choose the mark. Good at group working. Always in time. Shows respect. Knows how to adapt to new situations. You decide what you want to include. You decide what are the elements you want your students to be graded for. Okay? But instead of leaving the supervisor write whatever they want, you ask for specific issues. And then you can always add at the end a space saying any other information you want to include. Right? What do I mean when I say that masters can have other activities? Well, as a master coordinator, you may decide that apart from the courses, you want to add other things. So, for example, you may take inviting a professor who is specialized in academic writing, and is going to give you a guideline of what to do and what not to do when writing your master thesis. Or I'm going to invite somebody from our library to tell you how to search for information on what are the most important web pages where you should go, what are the most important archives for your field of expertise, right? Or there is a visiting lecturer at our university and he's coming one day to give you a talk. All these other activities will not be part of the grade. The student is not getting points for that, but they usually want to do it because they are very practical and they give a lot of information to them, right? And it shows their commitment to the program, right? How does a master program functions? Well, basically, every master program must have a master coordinator. some programs, master programs, when they have lots of students, I'm talking of master programs that have hundreds of students, or at least more than 50 students, they may decide to have more than one coordinator, right? Because they have to supervise all the all the administrative work connected with the master. And the master coordinator will be assisted by an academic commission. Sometimes there is a master coordinator that is assisted by the professor coordinating the master thesis and another professor coordinating the internships. And they are not really coordinators, they are members of the academic commission. But the idea is that all the administrative work connected with the master doesn't, when I say administrative work, I mean decisions, right? That not all the work falls on just one person's shoulders. So for example, if you want to organize internship, it means that a person is going to dedicate a number of hours per week visiting companies, visiting institutions, convincing them that you should accept our students, and they say, oh yes, we accept one student. No, come on, take two. I know you can do it. So that can mean a lot of phone calls and visits. So we don't want all that work to be just falling on one person, right? So it's helping them. And all programs, whether they are masters, they are doctoral programs, master programs, or bachelor programs, they must have a quality assurance committee. My colleague Mariam will be explaining tomorrow what is the quality assurance program, right? But there is always a couple of people who receive all the information connected with the quality assurance office, and they make sure that the master program complies with those regulations, okay? Internationalization of master programs. Well, one way of internationalizing a program is establishing exchange programs. So basically you have to you make contact another university and make an agreement between the two universities, right? So you may say, hey, here at the University of the Philippines, we have a master in law. Let's make an agreement with the University of Malaga, master in law. And it's a university-to-university program. Or you can join some organized exchange programs, like, for example, the Erasmus program, right? Or maybe there is one similar Erasmus program for Asian universities. You have to look for that, right? Where contacts on a one-to-one basis or joining associations. So, for example, in Malaga, in Spain, many universities are part of the AUIP. That's an association of Spanish-speaking universities that have doctoral programs. So it's Spain, Argentina, Chile, all the Spanish-speaking, basically South America, Central America universities, right? And we have an exchange program where people from our masters go to the countries for a semester or for a year. They come to Spain, right? So the thing is, let's look for connections, right? You can also have a double master. Well, what is double master? Well, basically, it means that the student is going to take two different master programs in two different universities. But the master programs have some common ground. And so what the student is doing is studying here in the Philippines some of the core courses from his master program, and then they go to another country where they are taking the core courses from that master program, and the university UP is accepting some of those compulsory courses as optional courses for them. So the student is basically studying 2 master programs at the same time, but taking less time than doing first one and then another, because the 2 programs are going to accept the courses done on the other country as part of their optional courses. When the student finishes, the student gets 2 master degrees. So you may say, okay, I have a master degree from a European university and another master degree from a Filipino university, right? But that means a lot of work beforehand. You have to make very clear what courses they can take, what courses they cannot take, what courses are going to be accepted at home as optionals, what courses are going to be accepted at the other place. And the student signs a contract saying, I know this is what I'm going to study in the 2 universities. And the 2 universities sign the contract saying, I am going to validate all the courses taken abroad. So there are no surprises there. So when the student finishes, there will be no surprises. Or, oh, you need to take more courses. You don't have enough credits, blah, blah, blah. No. Everything is agreed beforehand. Okay? Another possibility is a joint master. 2 universities come together and they decide to organize one single master program between the 2 of them. And so you say, you will stay for the first year here at the Philippines doing these courses, and on the second year you go to this other country to do these other courses. And you finish with 1 master degree by the University of Philippines and the University of Malaga. Right? It's different. But basically, it's a lot of amount of work for you. Well, here you have some web pages where you can find information on the European higher education system, on how to study in Europe, how to do internships, the national policies concerning the Bologna process, second cycle, right? So if you want to take a photograph, you are welcome. I will show it again later. Okay? And now let's go with the doctoral programs. So I need the other PowerPoint. Okay? Okay, we can skip that. Right. In February 2005, some European countries within the European higher education area decided that what had been done so far, organizing bachelor degrees and master degrees, have not made clear what doctoral programs should be. So they decided we have to have a very important meeting in Salzburg, and we must decide the common ground for all doctoral programs within the European Union. And during this meeting in Salzburg, they took decisions of what master programs must always cover. What are the features, the characteristics that all European masters must have? And this list of features that are non-negotiable are called the Salzburg principles, right? And basically what they say is that a master program must target, their main objective must be the production of original research, not just cutting and copying, but original research, that these doctoral programs must focus on providing students with an appropriate professional career development, right? So it has to be something that, in a way, enhances the possibilities of a career development. They also said that all master programs must consider the diversity of Europe, and quality has to be a key element. They also said that doctoral candidates should be recognized as professionals that are making a key contribution to the creation of new knowledge. They also insisted that doctoral programs are a shared responsibility between the university, the thesis supervisors, and the doctoral candidates. If the three of them are not equally committed, the doctoral program will not work. They also talk about doctoral programs must offer different solutions to adapt to the different contexts. Here we have to bear in mind that, for example, there is big economical differences between Northern European countries and Southern European countries. The money that we devote to university education is not the same in Scandinavian countries that, for example, Spain, Portugal, or Greece. So the doctoral programs must have must take into account the context of each country, the financial situation, the historical, political situation, and must be able to adapt to that. Okay? They also talk how, unlike the previous doctoral programs, new programs within the Bologna process must establish a time limit. And what do I mean by this? Well, with traditional doctoral programs, a student will go to the university and say, I want to enroll in this doctoral program. I want to write a thesis on this. And then some students will have the thesis ready in 2 years, and some students will have the thesis ready in 15, 20 years. And what they say with the with the Bologna process is, no way. You enroll in a master program, and then you take a doctoral program, and from the moment you enroll in the doctoral program to the moment you defend your thesis, you have a maximum of 3 years if you're working full-time. If you are enrolling as part-timer, then you will have 5, 6 years. But you have a time limit, and you must comply with that time limit. You must commit yourself to that work. If you are taking 10 to 15 years, maybe by the time you defend your thesis, it's absolutely outdated. Because there has been so much research, so many publications on the topic that you are not really contributing to your field, right? And of course, master programs must include innovative structures that go with the changes in the labor market, in society, and the program must provide international mobility, national mobility, and must enforce, well, not enforce is not the word, but must promote collaboration. Collaboration with other universities, with other research centers, with private companies, public companies, institutions. Let's finish with that idea of university professors living in an ivory tower and we don't know what is happening in the world. So let's get in touch with society, what is happening in the labor market, with what is happening in research centers and all that. Okay? And finally, all governments must provide enough funding for the doctoral programs to be carried out properly, right? So if a government is giving the green light to a program, it's because it's going to provide the money. So don't say, yes, we accept this doctoral program just because it's nice to go out in the newspapers and take a photograph saying, oh, look, I'm a brilliant Minister of Education. I'm creating giving the green light to all these programs, but then you are not providing the money, right? So the governments must have this commitment, all right? Okay. When traditionally in Europe, doctoral programs included doctoral courses that had to be taken before the defense of the thesis. That is not the case anymore. With the Bologna process, there were 11 countries, including Spain, which decided that the students have already taken all the courses they needed during the bachelor degree and the master program. And that the doctoral program, they should devote all the time to researching and writing the thesis. Okay? There were other countries that decided no, they have to take certain courses. Right? Again, it depends on which country you're studying. You have to know what is the national policy for that. Again, the functioning of the doctoral programs is very much the same that the functioning I have explained before for the master programs. One coordinator, one academic commission, one quality assurance commission. What has not changed is the traditional relationship between a student and a supervisor. Right? They will still spend a lot of time together, having meetings, office hours, tutorial time for guiding the student. How does the functioning work from the point of view of the student? The moment the student enrolls, he or she is going to be provided, like in the master thesis, with a list of all the possible supervisors and the field of expertise. And just like in the master thesis, the student can approach a specific professor and say, could you please be my thesis supervisor? And I really like your field of expertise. Can I work with you? Do you agree to be my supervisor? If by a certain date the student has not got a supervisor, the program coordinator will name the supervisor, right? So you may come to one of the professors in the list of potential supervisors, and you say, hey, Solomon, would you like to be my supervisor? And you may say, yes, I'll be your supervisor. Or you may say, I'm sorry, I have already said yes to 3 students. I cannot take thesis number 4 in just 1 year. But I suggest you go to my colleague, whoever, who works in the same field than me, right? If the student gets agreement, fine. If the student doesn't get an agreement with any supervisor, with any professor, he or she will have an interview with the program coordinator and said, what would you like to research about? This or maybe that. Sometimes you find students who have a very clear idea of what they want to do. I'm interested in international law. I'm not interested in anything else. For me, it's international law. Or even more specific, I want to write my thesis on applying international law to the international adoption of children. And they tell you a very specific thing. They will negotiate with the supervisor. Yes, I can do that. Or, no, look, that's not my field of expertise. I cannot really guide you with that. I suggest you talk to Dr. Whoever, who will really be able to provide you with the guidance you need. Sometimes the student comes to you and say, I don't really know what to do my thesis about. I like this, but I also like this, and I also like that. And then the role of the supervisor is to guide the student, to suggest, why don't you do it on this? I really feel strong about that, so I feel that I can really guide you with this, right? Okay? With the new system, with the old system, the one that does not exist anymore, because there was no time limit, the student got assessed only when they defended the thesis. But that is not the case anymore. With the Bologna system, the student is assessed, evaluated every academic year, right? So when the student joins the program, and he or she already has a tutor, a supervisor, and has already chosen the thesis is going to be about, the student has to write a research plan. In that research plan, the student is explaining, my thesis is going to be about this. And in the 3 years program, the 3 years of the program, this is the chronology I'm going to follow. In year 1, I will go to this library, to that archive, I will visit that place to take information. In the year 2, I will be publishing an article on this. On year 2, I will also attend this conference, whatever that student is doing, okay? And that research plan has to be approved by the supervisor, okay? So the student comes on the program, presents the research plan approved by the supervisor. At the end of the year 1, a commission, a board, will check, are you doing what you said you are doing? The research plan you are presented is feasible? It can be really done on a year? Or, look, with the program you have presented, there is no way you are going to do that in a year. That's not reasonable. I can tell you from now that on year 1, you will not be able to publish 5 articles in top journals. I can tell you that. And certainly not in this journal, that only accept articles from full professors and, you know, more senior professors. So it's the work of the supervisor and the work of the assessing commission to tell the student what you are doing is doable or not, is feasible or is not, okay? And then the student has to provide evidences of all the activities he has been doing. I have done a 1-month research stay at the Archivo de Indias in Spain, in Seville. I have a certificate to prove I was there. I have stayed for a month visiting Professor whoever at that university because he's an expert in this field. A certificate. I attended a seminar, a certificate. Okay? And there must be a very clear, transparent list of what elements are assessed in each year, right? Okay? So there are no surprises. So for example here, I have invented a possible student. And he says, on year 1, I will present my research plan and I will attend a couple of talks and seminars. Okay, that's fine. It's the year 1. But in year 2, I will update my research plan, including things I didn't include and I realized they are important. And I am not only attending talks and seminars, but I am participating in seminars. And I am publishing an article. And I am visiting a research center. Okay? Each year, the commission will evaluate the student. If the student does not pass the evaluation, that student is automatically expelled from the doctoral program. Okay? So The student must be really committed to what they are doing. And if they feel they cannot comply with this, they should ask to be considered part-timers. If they are working full-time at the same time, or they are taking care of the children, or taking care of the parents, whatever the situation, they should go as part-timers, right? So the commission will be more lenient, because instead of getting all this in 3 years, we'll be doing all this in 5 years, right? Every year, the supervisor provides a report saying what he has done, justifying, explaining what he didn't do, what he was supposed to do, and the evaluating committee will decide pass or not pass, right? In the University of Malaga, we created an application for the doctoral programs. So when the student enrolls in a doctoral program, the doctoral office immediately creates a file for the student with the personal data, name, address, telephone number, email, blah, blah, blah. And then what is the name of the supervisor, what is the working title. And the student uploads every year the research plan, updated every year, and the student uploads in his file all the evidences that he is accumulating, all the certificates that prove the work they are doing, right? So that when the commission meets, the commission gets a password to access the application, and they can read the documents, right? They can read the annual plan, they can read the tutors' reports, they can see what are the certificates that have been uploaded, okay? And then the day comes when your supervisor says, your thesis is ready to be defended. And you thought, really? I'm not sure I want that, right? And then the program will will choose 2 external evaluators from 2 other universities to read your thesis. And the 2 evaluators, the 2 external evaluators, must give a positive report saying this thesis is ready to be defended. They may say the thesis is not ready to be defended, or they may say it could be defended if the candidate makes these changes. Okay? And then the candidate is given 3 months to make the changes. All right? And then, when you have the positive report from your supervisor, the positive report from the 2 external evaluators, the academic commission organizes a board of 3 members, and there will be a public defense, right? And the public defense is like the traditional one. The student goes, he has between 45 and 60 minutes to defend his thesis. Then all the members of the board tell him everything they like about the thesis and everything they don't like about the thesis. And they make suggestions. I suggest that for the future you could go this way or go that way. And they make us questions. Why don't you include this? Why didn't you explain that? Or I didn't really understand this paragraph there. Could you please explain? Could you please elaborate? The student can take notes as they are talking, and then the student is given time to answer. Okay? That's like the old way. How to internationalize doctoral programs? Well, for example, you can agree on an international co-tutel. In this case, there is a formal agreement signed between 2 universities, and the student has to enroll in the 2 universities, the home university and the foreign university, and will be assigned 1 supervisor in each university. The 2 of them work together, the 2 of them are experts in the same field, right? And at the end, after the student defends the thesis, the defense is done only once in one of the two universities, and at the end, the student will get 2 doctoral degrees, one from each university, right? And the student must spend time at the 2 universities with the 2 supervisors. So it can go for 6 months to one university with doing office hours with that supervisor, and then spend another 6 months with the other. They have to organize themselves, right? So the idea is that the student will be, maybe, for example, imagine that you are comparing the Filipino legal system with the Spanish legal system. You have one expert, one Filipino expert, one Spanish expert. And you spend some time with one, some time with the other one, okay? The thesis is only defended once. Another possibility is a doctoral thesis with international mention. That means the student is enrolling only at one university, but again, there are 2 supervisors, one from the home university, the other one from a foreign university. The student gets just 1 doctoral degree from his home university, and he has to stay at least for 3 months at the foreign university, right? And the external evaluators, they cannot be from their home country. The external evaluators must be from foreign universities or institutions, right? Research centers or whatever. And if, for example, you are studying your master thesis, your doctoral thesis in Spain, the thesis must be written in Spanish, but then you will have to put an abstract and conclusions in English. Or the other way around. You're writing the thesis in English, but at least the abstract and the conclusion must be in Spanish, right? And of the 3 members of the evaluating board, at least one of them has to be teaching or working, researching at a foreign institution. Okay? That's another way to internationalize. All right? And let's go on. I hope I am not boring you to death with so much information. Let's go with the lifelong learning courses. Well, what is a lifelong learning courses? Basically, are courses that are not part of a degree, not a bachelor degree, not a master degree, not a doctoral program. And they can be done because you consider that there is material that has not been included in an official degree, but you think that the students will need that information, that knowledge. So you create a course focusing on that was not covered during the degree. Another possibility is that you want the professionals, your former students, who are not your students anymore, they are working, but you want to provide a continuing education, right? So there is something that you say, hey, they got the degree, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I think there has been changes in the Filipino legislation, and I think it will be good for our former students to come back to the university for doing this course, right? Or imagine, for example, that the Filipino government says from now on, all the judicial system should go through this application. With no paper anymore, all the documents are uploaded, and the prosecutor can check and read the documents that are there. The lawyer taking care of the defense can go in there, and so you decide, okay, let's organize a course so that everybody learns how to use the application, right? Or you may decide that you want to organize courses to help professionals recycle. So, for example, you may say, okay, there may be former graduates that have not been practicing law. Maybe they have been very busy bringing up their children for the last 5 years, or they have been with a long illness leave, or they have been taking care of their parents, and they want to go back to the legal practice. Well, we provide a crash course to help them recycle. Or imagine somebody that has been working all their life, well, divorcing people. And then he says, I cannot go with one more single divorce or I will kill somebody. You know, I want to recycle myself and do something else. Well, you know the basics because you already studied that, but you need refreshing concepts. Well, you may organize a course on that. What is the lifelong learning courses? You remember I explained at the beginning that they go parallel with bachelor, master program. You can organize, for example, in Spain, we have some lifelong learning courses that you need to have at least a bachelor degree to take them, right? But there are also other courses, like these ones over here, that are for graduates. Maybe students who are still on the last year of their bachelor degree, and you say, I'm going to provide you with an extra course that you may take this summer because I'm providing extra information, because whatever you consider, right? What is the really good thing about lifelong learning courses from the point of view of you as a teacher, from the point of view of you as a student, a potential student for these courses? Well, official degrees, whether it's bachelor degree, master degree, bachelor, doctoral program, take very long to be implemented because you, as a department, suggest a program, then it has to go through your school to give you the green light, and then has to go to your rector's office or whatever the system you have in your university to give you the green light, and then you must send it to the regional government to give the green light, and the Ministry of Education to provide the funds and give the green light. It may take 2-3 years before the program is really implemented. Well, if you want something like, you cannot keep people that want to recycle waiting for 3 years, because by the time the program is approved, you have to recycle not the student, you have to recycle the program that you are suggesting, right? So the good thing about lifelong learning courses is that it only depends on the approval of your university, right? So it's much quicker to pass. It's much quicker to get it ready for implementation, all right? And you can decide how you want to do it. You may decide it's going to last a week, it's going to last a month, it's going to take a whole academic year, it's going to be from Mondays to Fridays in the evening, it's going to be on weekends. So people that are working from Monday to Friday, they can come every Saturday, and we do it Friday night and Saturday morning and afternoon. Any combination you want. You don't have the strict structures of master's, doctoral programs, or degrees. And you can decide that instead of courses, you want a combination of courses, talks, seminars, whatever you want. That's the good thing about live learning courses. You do a tailor-made course with what you really want to have. The most difficult part for a lifelong learning course is that it has to be self-financed. Neither your university, not any government, will provide any money for it. It will depend on the fees of the students, the enrollment fees, and on all the possible sponsorships that you get. So it's your work to get the money for it. Okay? That's the difficult part. This, in Spain, that you remember Chantal was talking, no, Eugenio was talking yesterday about the different types of university professors we have in Spain and the amount of hours we have to teach depending on our contract. Well, in Spain, the teaching hours in lifelong learning courses is not part of your official workload, right? Only the teaching of official bachelor programs, master programs, and doctoral programs is part of your workload. If you decide to take part, to be teaching in a lifelong learning courses, it's your decision. It's something you are going to be doing on your free time. To make up for that, you get extra money for the course you are doing, right? So they will pay you for the number of hours you are doing here. With time, we have realized that it's necessary for the university to implement regulation for these courses, to stop, to prevent abuses. Because we found that some teachers were participating in many of these courses to get a lot of extra money. And that meant that they were not doing enough research, they were not attending students, they were just because they were very busy getting a second salary, right? So there must be regulations implemented by the university saying you can teach a maximum of so many hours per year, right? We don't want the professors doing so many hours here that they do not have time to do their duties on their official salary, okay? And again, here you have a list of some links, some web pages where you can find extra information, okay? Sorry, I'll go back to that. Oh, I don't know if I can go back to that. There. And well, that's all. I hope it was not too much information. And if you have any questions or whatever, I will try to, after the commentator, to answer your questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lopez, for allowing us to better understand how master and doctoral programs are designed and how the Salzburg principles seek to improve them. We will now be opening the floor for general questions. To kickstart the open forum, Dean Soledad Deriquito Mawis will first be reacting to today's lectures. Dean Mawis is the current Dean of the Lyceum of the Philippines College of Law, Makati and Cavite campuses, and chairperson of the Philippine Association of Law Schools. A civil law and remedial law expert, she is a professorial lecturer too at the Philippine Judicial Academy, a member of its civil law department, and continues to teach law at the University of the Philippines, University of Santo Tomas, De La Salle University, and Adamson University College of Law, among other law schools. Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Mawis.
Good morning, everybody. It's like reciting in front of a class. So pardon me, I have to come prepared, so I was typing all the way. Okay, I'm honored and privileged to be designated as a reactor to the well-prepared presentation of Dr. Miriam Rodriguez. So honored that I told the Doctora that she is assured that at least there's one person in this hall that will have her ears tuned to the next 2 hours, and of course that's me. Now, in the university where I am dean, that is the Lyceum of the Philippines University, our founder, the former Associate Supreme Court Justice Jose P. Laurel, once said that education is necessary for people's happiness and progress. Those words resonate in the presentation of our distinguished speaker, Dr. Rodriguez. We can never stop learning, for in learning we become externally and internally happy. 2, learning is a means to promote progress in a country's critical mass. In achieving this, one cannot but agree how important research training, and the promotion of interdisciplinary methods is in enhancing competitiveness in higher education. And I am grateful that through CALESA, the sharing of ideas ensures a steady stream of conscious issue identification and discerned proposed palliative measures to address the same. It has been said that lifelong learning is best described as being voluntary with the purpose of achieving personal fulfillment. The means to achieve this could result in informal or formal education. 2, it has been said that lifelong learning recognizes that humans have a natural drive to explore, learn, and grow, and encourage us to improve our own quality of life and sense of self-worth by paying attention to the ideas and goals that inspire us. This, to my mind, applied to master's and doctoral degrees. It is indeed providential, to say the least, that our esteemed speaker's presentation actually echoes Section 8 of Canon 4 on competence and diligence of the Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability, which was adopted by our Supreme Court quite recently. Section 8 of CPRA provides, and I quote, lifelong learning. A competent lawyer engages in lifelong learning through the continued development of professional skills. Towards this end, a lawyer shall participate in continuing legal education and keep abreast of legal developments. This made me ponder about the future of our own legal education. In the Philippines, getting the lawyers to get into the second cycle, master's degree, is a challenge on its own. Finance, time, and practical applicability are some of the reasons that make a lawyer think twice before jumping into it. In fact, in education.ph, it noted that graduate school is not cheap. Thus, pursuing graduate studies is an important decision in one's life that one cannot take lightly. Getting them into the doctoral program is even more challenging, especially since most lawyers will have to beg off from their practice to focus on their master's or doctoral thesis. Yet the presentation of Dr. Rodriguez gave us hope. She discussed a basic principle that higher educational programs should operate within appropriate time duration, 3 to 4 years full-time as a rule. The question, however, is what are the criteria to be used in determining the best duration? How do we ensure that the advancement of knowledge through original research will meet the needs of an employment market that is wider than the academia? According to an article written by a person from the University of Bridgeport, one of the biggest challenges faced by graduate students lies in their ability to effectively and efficiently manage their time. Many graduate students are already doing a million things at once: raising a family, working a job, managing a household, self-care, and maintaining a social life. Add in school on top of these responsibilities, and one busy schedule just became even busier. Dr. Rodriguez provided us with a practical solution. Study and determine the number of hours an average student needs to pass the course. But in so doing, may I ask, Doctora, may the good doctor kindly provide us with the criteria, the factors, a scientific way of determining the number of units. Will academic freedom be infringed if a group of professors will determine the number of hours for each subject, how to teach, and what to teach? Will it be best to leave the determination of how to teach to the professors who will teach the subject, or will it be a product of group discernment composed of different professors teaching different subjects? The best part of Dr. Rodriguez's presentation is her discussion of the defense and evaluation of the master's or doctoral thesis. Its core premise is that it should be based on fairness and transparency. a transparent contractual framework of shared responsibilities between doctoral candidates, for example, the supervisors and the institutions, will minimize the demands of the pressure of the lifelong learning process. Students are guided by expressed expectations and not by selective orientation. The student is to be assisted. The student is to be assisted to prepare and pass, not to slowly die in the presence of the human gods. Also, I like Dr. Rodriguez's exposition on internships. This I really like. I love it when she said that interns are not slaves. Interns are to learn and must be provided a tutor. This will ensure that his learnings will not be confined to the four walls of the academic institution. The world becomes his classroom. This ensures that the doctoral training must increasingly meet the needs of an employment market really wider than the academia. Dr. Rodriguez, in her presentation, gave life to the old saying, "It takes a village to raise a child." I agree with the master's program. It must be run by a number of coordinators, commissions, or committees. This recognizes the crucial role of supervision and assessment in respect of individual doctoral candidates, arrangements for supervision, and assessment. But the question is, how do we choose the members of that committee? Another topic that piqued my interest is the internalization of doctoral programs. It is really very good. But for us Filipinos, enrolling in two universities may prove to be very limiting, as cost will be a very big factor. The fact that the external evaluators must come from foreign institutions and universities might just add up to the cost. Dr. Rodriguez's presentation, to be sure, is an amalgamation of best practices that the universities may adopt to ensure a more realistic, practical, and appropriate professional career development. Dr. Rodriguez, thank you for bringing to life the erudite statement of Benjamin Franklin, which I just copied from the internet, no? And I quote, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. Involve me and I will learn." Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dean Mawis, for your reaction. And of course, thank you again, Dr. Lopez, for your enlightening lecture. And I'm sure many in the audience now have questions for both of you. So with that, I would now like to open the floor for general questions. For our audience participating via Zoom, please use the Q&A function for your questions. But I would also like to invite both of our speaker and our reactor to come back on stage. We will be having okay, it's coming in. There is a sofa moving behind me, and it will now be placed in the middle of the room. I would like to invite our speakers to please sit in the middle so that everybody could be able to ask their questions in a little bit more of a relaxed environment. Yes, please, Dr. Please, kindly sit. And I'll ask Dr. as well. We will just wait for a microphone that we can pass on. Okay. So while we are setting up, please be ready with your questions. They did have a lot of very interesting points made, so I'm very sure that we want to take this opportunity to be able to really dig a little bit deeper. There you go. Thank you. All right, so I now open the floor for questions. There is a microphone in the middle of the aisle, so for those in the audience, you may just stand up, approach the microphone, say your name and your affiliation, and then ask your question. All right, please. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'm Ian. I'm a student here in the college. And I guess, as a bachelor student who is graduating, I would like to ask, coming from the perspective of a non-EU international student who is curious to build, hello, 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 who is curious to build a multi-jurisdictional career or practice, would it be preferable to immediately pursue a graduate program, a master's degree program, and then a doctorate, or to try first the lifelong learning courses that we mentioned earlier, such as maybe week-long or a month-long um, intensive programs introducing us to those particular areas of interest. And then I have a one follow-up, if you would allow me po, after this question. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ian.
Okay, so the question is whether when you finish your degree, you go straight on to the master or and the doctoral program, or you go to lifelong learning courses.
Yes.
Well, that very much is an individual decision depending on your circumstances. Some students can get a grant, some can get a scholarship, and they can go straight onto a master program, or they can afford the master program fee. Some other students have a family situation when they need to work full-time, and they need to postpone the master for a year, 2 years. So, and they don't want to disconnect from the university. So they may take lifelong learning courses that are usually cheaper. So that very much depends on what is your situation.
I see. Thank you for that, Professor. And I guess as a follow-up, usually graduate programs tend to be very academic-centered or focused. That is, we would need to write and defend a thesis. I would just like to ask if there are programs in the EU or in Spain or in other EU countries that focus more on a practical side of a profession. The nearest thing that comes to my mind would be a Master of Legal Practice, but that one is in Australia. So I'm asking if there are such programs in the EU.
Yes. You must consider that for certain professions, to practice certain professions is compulsory to have a master course. So for example, in Spain, when you finish your degree in law, you cannot practice law until you finish the master in law, right? And it may happen with other professions, like architecture, right? So there are certain professions where when you finish your degree, you must take a specific master if you want to practice. So you cannot begin practicing as a lawyer just by getting a degree in law.
I see.
And so it's different depending on, in the case of my students, that they are doing English studies and American studies, the master is not compulsory if you want to work in an international company where they need you to be bilingual, or in a publishing house, but you need a compulsory master in education if you want to be a teacher of English in high school.
I see.
So it depends on what is the career you want to follow. It depends on what is your bachelor degree on.
Okay,
The situation changes.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yes, please, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Rodriguez. I'm Alanette from the University of San Agustin. I'm very interested, and it was new to me, the one that you introduced, the lifelong courses. And I'm very interested to know what are these specific courses that you have been offering, and how much are the tuition fees if you have already conducted this.
Okay. One of the positive things of fees in Spanish public universities is that they are among the cheapest in the European Union, right? So the fees are not the same in all the countries. For example, in Andalusia, the region where I work, I live, the fees are very low. They are very much funded by the government. And the fees for foreign students are not much more expensive than for national students. There are other countries where the fee for foreign students may double or triple the fees for the nationals. The fee of each lifelong learning course is decided by the organizers. And it depends very much on how much they want to pay to the teachers. And it depends very much on the type of course. If it's a course that demands buying products, so to speak. Imagine that you are taking a life learning course for the School of Dentistry. And you are learning how to design pieces for the mouth, for false teeth and dentures and that sort of stuff. A large part of the fee is going to be for buying all the products, because it's going to be a very practical lifelong learning course, and you're going to spend many hours at the laboratory practicing and seeing the do's and do nots of these false teeth, just to give you an example, right? Imagine that it's a lifelong learning course for engineering, where you will be creating robots. Just buying the products, just buying the pieces is very expensive. So it will have nothing to do with the fee for a lifelong learning course on humanities. You know, I teach American literature. If we do a lifelong learning course, the most expensive part will be for you to go to the library and photocopy one of the books we are talking about, or buying the book from Amazon. It's not going to be that expensive. So the fee is decided by each course organizer, depending on how much money they need to pay for the professors. So, for example, it's not the same if all the professors are from the University of Malaga. It's not the same that if you have to bring experts from other parts of the country, and you have to pay for the trips, the hotels, and all this. So there is really no fixed price.
Okay, but in the university that you are from, what lifelong courses have you been offering? And in relation to the field of law, do you have one?
Oh, that Eugenio will know more about that. What lifelong learning courses have we offered at the University of Malaga specifically for law? Yes, please.
Yes, as Miriam has told, one of the advantages of these lifelong learning courses is that they may change very fast. So each year, the offer that we have of the Faculty of Law changes. We used to have a lifelong learning course which has a great success on European law and international law. It was very specific, and so now we have another one of digital administration from the people of administrative law. We are planning another one on digital markets, the conflicts on privacy, data protection, and intellectual property in that way. And we have another one that has had a lot of success on urbanism law. So the main point of from law studies point of view of these courses is that we may change it and adapt it to the realities or to the demands of the population. For example, now that digital markets are becoming a more and more hotter topic each year, we are planning to offer a specific lifelong learning course on digital markets from the point of view of intellectual property, also from competition law point of view. And maybe our plan is that it begins as a lifelong learning course, and in a future, maybe in 2 years long or so, we may offer properly a master's degree, an LLM on this topic. Once that we know that there is the demand and that we can offer a 60 ACTS course. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was for 3 years, I was at the commission that decided which lifelong courses proposal were accepted or not. And we got all types of proposals. Sometimes they were specific for students from one degree, or specific for students from one specific school or college. And some of the times were more interdisciplinary, or they were not even specific for any degree. Like I remember a course suggested by some professors from the, what was my area? Lifelong learning course on the application of mindfulness for university researchers. You know, is all the faculty members have the right to suggest a course. A different thing is that the commission says yes or not. But we even have one on holistic views of the chakras and whatever. And we said, yeah, okay, fine. And what's your expertise in that field? So you can teach that. And she said, I took a summer course on that last year. And I said, well, I'm not questioning the validity of your 1 week summer course last year, but I think when we talk that the course is, you know, given by an expert, it should be more than 1 week summer course. So.
Thank you. We have another question here in front from Professor Vicky Luanzon. In front, please.
My question is addressed to Dean Mawis. I know as chairman of PALS, you serve the requirements based on the LEB prescription on courses. May I just inquire if PALS is moving on into the fusion also not only of the basic degree in law, but also something to what Dr. Rodriguez presented to us, masteral, doctorate, and even these lifelong courses. Thank you.
My first comment, I thought you were my friend. Now my answer. It is not actually a directive, okay? It is not required, not mandatory for all law schools to provide this type of courses, lifelong, masteral, doctoral, but only to those who can afford and can do. That's basically the answer. But of course, within PALS, we encourage the universities to do so, but the universities will have to decide on their own. Thank you.
If I may, something that the government has been seeing in Spain is that there must be a certain regulation on the master's doctoral programs that are approved, so that not every public university in every region is offering exactly the same masters and exactly the same doctoral programs, creating competition between them to offer exactly the same. So they are beginning to work on the idea of, if within the in Andalusia we have 8 provinces and we have 10 public universities. And what they say is there is no point having the same masters and the same doctoral programs in the 8 provinces. So if you have in Malaga this master in English and American Studies specialized in this, the one offering Seville should be slightly different from another perspective. Even if it's still English Studies, but from another perspective, not exactly the same. Because in that case, we are not advancing on research. And we are using public money to be competing against another public money funded master. So they have begun to see, you know, we have to create what they call a map of postgraduate studies. And they are, you know, like, you cannot be the competitor. Using public money to compete against another master that is also funded with public money. So there must be some control over there, some diversification.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to ask, how can we balance social equal access to education and social equity, given that the competitive systems kind of emphasize
Sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of the question. How can we
balance social equity and I guess quality education, given that, you know, competitive doctoral programs emphasize high grades and stuff like that, which might overlook some high quality candidates that kind of show their brilliance in other ways that might not be so apparent in a transcript?
Well, that's difficult. That's difficult because given the amount of students who are applying to the programs, what can you do apart from checking the marks that they got from previous studies? You may have a small interview, but in that case, it will become very subjective. You will depend on the person interviewing you liking you. And that's not positive, right? We cannot make your entrance depending on someone's opinion on you, whether they like you, they don't like you. So in some programs, they may decide that apart from your grades from previous courses, previous degrees, they may also consider, for example, your professional experience that may make up for the grades that you don't have or for the courses you haven't taken. They may consider your CV, whatever you have done apart from getting a degree. But it's complicated. Especially because I think of students like myself. I didn't get great marks during my bachelor degree. Basically because, to be honest, for half of my courses that I took, I was bored to death. Because my teachers, the only thing they expected from me was to memorize. I did very well in the courses where I had to present ideas and defend ideas and give my opinion. But if I was just expected to memorize and the day of the final exam vomit what I have memorized, I was bored to death. I just wanted to pass and move on. And it was only on the final years where the courses, because we were about 120 students per class. And there was no continuing education. Most teachers didn't know me. There were 120 students in the same room. And they didn't know me. They just marked a written final exam that was very anonymous to them. And so I had to do other things. I had to say, hey, I have not only been studying my bachelor degree. In my summer holidays, I have been a volunteer in international associations. I have been interpreting for free. I have been translating for free. I have taken summer courses. I'm committing to the cause. It's the only way. It's up to you to show that your CV has just more than one line, say, degree in English studies. So it's for you to find how you make up for the not wonderful grades. You know, and then I went into the doctoral program. I am very old, so at the time I did my doctoral program in Spain. Masters were not compulsory. You could go from a 5 years degree to a doctoral program, because the doctoral programs included all 2 years doctoral courses, what today is a master. When I joined the doctoral program, I was doing what I like it. I was enjoying myself because I was expected to read a book, go to the class, and express my opinion on the book. And suddenly I was getting all these A+, and I was thinking, oh gosh, you know, I never got so many A's. The problem is that the courses have to be designed for big groups, you know, large groups. And that does not always allow professors to really know the students. It's only when you go to the master program or the doctoral program where you have smaller groups that you can really begin to know if a student is mature enough, if a student knows how to express themselves, if they know how to defend an idea without insulting anybody in the room. But that's not always possible in public universities.
If I may just add, no? Grades should never define a person. Thank you. Grades should never define a person. That's from the point of view of a professor. Whenever I interview, let's say, a new lawyer who wants to join the firm, I do not and deliberately do not look at their transcripts of records alone. I look at the CV, I look at the extracurricular activities, I look at everything. Because at the end of the day, the numbers do not define you. That's it.
I will get personal again, if I may. I have not followed the traditional path for university professors, right? Most university professors, they finish the degree, go on with a master, go on with a doctoral program, join the department as assistants, teaching assistants, and then they go up the scale, you know, they go up the teaching ladder. That was not my case. As I finished my degree, I was a teacher at a British university for 3 years. Then I went back to Spain and I worked as a translator for 10 years. And then I began working at the university. At the time when I began working at the university in year 2000, I was 30-something. And that's a very unusual age to begin teaching to begin getting a university career. They usually begin younger. But when I have had interviews asking for a job or asking for a scholarship, they have never asked me what my grades were. What they like it about me is a candidate that is willing to travel, is willing to live abroad, has already been living in United States, Mexico, Cameroon, in West Africa, and the United Kingdom. Is somebody who adapts to new cultures, new languages, new situations, who is willing to move to different countries, that works well individually, that works well as part of a team. And those are the things that has an initiative when I have to, but I'm also good following orders when I have to, only if you ask very nicely. But, you know, usually they don't pay that much attention to your grades. They want somebody who is going to be a good worker, a good member of the team. And if you are a good member of the team, you go to the job interview and you have bother checking in the internet what the company is about, what are the future plans, it's something they appreciate more than how many A+ did you get in secondary school or during your bachelor degree. Okay, I hope that helps.
Thank you. Ma'am, please ask.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Amelia Fajardo from the College of Education. Partially, you have answered my question already. I'm about to ask about the straight PhD program, if you have. The straight PhD without the master's. So how do you implement that program? What is the design? How many years should one before finishing the PhD? And then I was once a reviewer. I was an external reviewer for a dissertation, and I have to decide whether the dissertation was just worth the MA degree or the PhD. So there's a backup. So in case the candidate does not meet the quality work for the dissertation, he or she is compensated by giving him a lower degree, the MA degree.
Oh, well, in Spain, if you enroll for a doctoral degree, first you remember that you have your supervisor guiding you throughout the process, right? Also remember that you have an evaluating commission evaluating you every year, telling you what things you are doing right, what things you should be doing and you are not doing. So you have all this all this information being provided for you all the time as you go along, right? So the evaluating committee is going to tell you, oh, you are doing very well with the research and the visiting archives and visiting libraries, but you are already in your second year, you should consider visiting this research center that specializes in this topic, or you should consider participating in a conference and delivering a paper. They are guiding you through the process. And also your supervisor is providing an annual report on what you are doing, saying you are doing this very well, you are doing so in these elements, and you have to strengthen this other part of your progress. And then when at the end, when you think your thesis is ready to be defended, you have the final report from your supervisor, and then the thesis is sent to 2 external supervisors, and they have to fill in a template that the doctoral program's academic commission has designed, asking them, does the thesis, is the thesis well structured? Yes, so, no. Is the thesis well written, clearly written? Can you see the point is clearly developed? Yes, no, so. It goes through many points, right? That template, your supervisor has a copy of that template. The supervisor will not give you the green light to have your thesis sent to the external evaluators if they don't think you are going to get a yes in at least 8 of the 10 points that are of the 10 items. So you are all the time being provided information. You know, your supervisor is going to tell you, external evaluators are going to evaluate these elements in your thesis. And these are well done, but this is not done at all. And this is done 50%. So your supervisor will not give you the go-ahead unless they know that the template is going to be yes, 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 well, maybe. And then you think that supervisors may, in the report, the external supervisors can say, yes, the thesis is ready for the defense. No, it's not ready for defense. It's ready for defense with minor changes, and then you are given a couple of weeks to do the changes, or is ready for defense with major changes, and then you are given a longer period of time. You get all this back up. They are telling you what is right, don't touch it, what is not that bad, but needs polishing, and what needs to be completely changed. So they don't just say it's not ready. They have to justify their decision. So you get a lot, as a doctoral candidate, you get a lot of information on what you are doing well and go on that way, what needs to change, and to what degree needs to be changed.
Can I have one more question?
Sure.
You mentioned in one of your slides, one of the requirements for getting the degree is the publication.
Yes.
Well, I think many students here in the university, I think, if we require the publication, finishing the dissertation is already a problem, and then you add the publication. So in this case, how many publications do you require? In some universities in Asia, at least where I graduated and took my PhD, I was required to publish 2 articles solo, plus the dissertation in 3 years.
The requirements depend on each doctoral program. So it is the academic commission of the doctoral program that makes the list of items that are required, because they are the ones who know the reality of the field. So they will tell you, well, you need to, year 1, you don't need any publications. Year 2 is not compulsory, but in year 3, before defending the thesis, you must need 1 publication, 2 publications, 3 publications. One has to be at a national level, one has to be at the international level. But it's each doctoral program that decides what the requirements are, because they know the reality of the journals of their field, the magazines or whatever of the films. And sometimes the publication does not necessarily have to be an article in a journal. Sometimes it can be the proceedings from a conference. Okay.
All right. I would like to read out a question that was sent in via Zoom to also give equal opportunity for our audience members who are unable to join us here in person. This question is posed by Professor Tanya Lat. Her question is, the Philippines has mandatory continuing legal education, or MCLE. This is a continuing professional development requirement imposed by the Supreme Court on all practicing lawyers as part of their continuing admission to the bar. Do Spain and the EU have something similar, and if so, how is this requirement regulated and by whom? Thank you.
Eugenio. Help! Yes, the Filipino legal system makes compulsory the continuous education for practicing lawyers. Is the same thing for lawyers in Spain?
Actually, in Spain, we do not have, in general, a compulsory continuous building, but in specific fields of law, there is the obligation. For example, we have a quite difficult system for insolvency law. So insolvency lawyers, they have to follow a continuous building program. So each year, I think they have to justify that they have done at least, I don't know if it's exactly like that, but 30 to 50 hours a year in order to be able to go to court and defend cases of insolvency law. I think it's the same for intellectual property lawyers, and I don't know if in any other specific field of law you have this obligation, but in general, for family law, contracts, and other fields of law, administrative law, there is not such an obligation. It's just in specific laws, for example, in the Spanish insolvency law, where this obligation is established. So we have an advantage at the university that if we offer courses, lifelong learning courses in these topics, we know that we are going to fill the whole course because all lawyers will be interested in following these courses.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's very much like pilots. They have to have a minimum flying hours per year so they don't lose their license. Good thing.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the floor? If not, I will read out another. Oh, I think I see a hand in the back.
Good morning to both speakers, and thank you very much for really clearly relayed points. So my question is about the internship part of a master's program, and I was happy to note that it was a point of interest for both speakers, for Dr. Lopez and for Dean Mawis as well. So if I understand correctly, it's usually 6 months long, and it happens in the last Okay, I'm wrong in that regard, so I'll just have that clarified. And then it happens in like towards the last semester of the program. So we can all agree that it's important to bump research with what happens in the outside world. But my question, and then in the end of it, there's a company tutor report where the students are evaluated. So my question would be, if on the student side there's any chance to also evaluate the company that they shadow. For example, if they feel that the internship has not given them enough data, if they feel at any point that it is not an appropriate company to shadow, is there a chance for them to change their internship or to relate to the academic commission that they want to study further in the company that they're interning in? Thank you.
Yes, the internship has to be taken during the last semester of the master, but is taking place at the same time that the student is taking all these courses, all the courses that are on the second semester. So the student is going to stay in the company for about 3 months, maybe 4 months, depending on the program, and is going to be it cannot be full-time because the students are still going to university to take courses for the second semester. That's why in some universities they have decided that instead of having a master of 1 year, they have a master of 3 semesters, so that the last semester the student is preparing the master thesis and doing the internship. So it's not so hard for the student that they finish classes, run to the company, do the courses, on the weekend prepare the master thesis. So that's why some consider that option. When a student has this interview with the internship coordinators in the master, they are given the list of companies and institutions, and the student chooses where they want to go. And if after a few days or maybe a week or 2 weeks, the student decides they are not happy, they contact the internship coordinators and tell them why they are not happy. In some cases, it may be just some misunderstanding on the side of the company. The internship coordinators will get in touch with the student's company tutor and will talk to them. You know, the student says that he has spent the first 3 weeks making photocopies. This is not what we agreed. I guess it was just some misunderstanding on the side of the company, and I hope it's solved in 48 hours. Otherwise, I will have to take the student and put it, send it to some other company. In most cases, the companies answer in a positive way. If not, the student will be removed and sent to another company. At the end of the internship, the student fills a report on how has been the experience. And depending on the information the student is giving about the internship, that company may be blocked and taken out of the list of potential internships. Anybody can do a mistake. And so we contact the company, we say this is not working well, there is this problem. If the problem is solved, okay, we go on, no problem. If the problem is not solved, and at the end of the experience, the students writes a negative report, it's a negative experience, then we contact the company and we say, oh, thank you for your service, but we are not interested in keeping you in our list of potential placements. So, we want companies and institutions that respond well. And depending on the degrees, but for example, in technological degrees, the University of Malaga is very strong in different engineering. In the internship placements for engineering, over 50% of the students get a job at the place where they did the internship. And in other degrees, they don't get a job, but they become part of the list of potential substitutes to cover sickness leaves, maternity leaves. So in general, it's a very positive experience. And if an experience is not positive, we become very surgical. Out. You don't want us, we don't want you.
All right, thank you. Okay, seeing as there are no questions on the floor at the moment, I will now take control of the microphone and ask my own question, seeing as I have a captive microphone. This is still sort of related to the internship question. I found that very interesting. And I was wondering to what extent this could be, so actually this is a two-part question. So one for you, Dr. Lopez, and also one for you, Dean Mawis. So if I may, first a question for Dean Mawis. To what extent can we borrow this idea of an internship for LLM programs, recognizing that the typical LLM student would be a lawyer of somewhat already an advanced status in their career, sometimes even judges, let's say, knowing that to be put in an internship program is to sort of put yourself out there in our, among other colleagues, other offices. What value might that experience have for them? How would we be able to sort of navigate the professional awkwardness, I would say, because this is a practical concern, of course, and the busyness of the lives of these LLM students, considering that many of them are part-time students as well. So conceptually, the internship program certainly imparts value. I'm just wondering if it would be something that we can actually implement in the Philippine LLM situation.
I think it is doable. First, I always believe that there's always should be a fusion between learning inside the classroom and the outside world. All we have to do is just to make sure that we look for places where they can work, where the professional awkwardness will be eradicated totally. So for example, if they're judges, they might as well find a place, we might as well find a place where the judges can work as normal beings. Okay? So it's just really trying to find out where they can work. And that, to my mind, is also the responsibility of the institution.
Thank you. And
May I add something connected with that? We have internships for bachelor programs and master programs. And if the student has working experience on the field, he may provide documents proving his working experience so that the internship is validated by the experience they have. So, for example, imagine somebody who is, I don't know, is a teacher teaching English in a secondary school, or, well, not that the case, in a primary school, because he took a degree in education. And now is doing the degree in English, so they can teach also at secondary school and university school. If they provide the certificates proving that I have already been a teacher, even if it's at primary level for 10 years, the commission may decide that is going to be substantial evidence that they already know how the labor market works. And they would not need to do the training, the internship.
sort of like an equivalence.
Yes, it will be considered like, well, you provide evidence enough that you already know what is working in that environment.
Thank you. The other question still related to the internship issue. So how is the experience of European or Spanish universities in building networks with companies? So I guess to sort of get them interested in hosting students, participating. I mean, it done well, it could complement their efforts as well. Done badly, it could just be a nuisance for them, I can imagine. So how does your institution, your European institutions in general, go about building these networks of companies that it would be a mutually satisfactory arrangement for everybody?
Well, historically, companies have complained that we university professors do not know the realities of the labor market. And so we use that to attack them and use emotional blackmail. We say, well, now this is your opportunity to teach our students the reality of the market. How many do you want to be placed at your company? So you can teach them the realities. It's partly a joke, partly reality. Basically, it's hard work for the internships coordinator. They will have to contact companies, to contact institutions, and convince them of this is for the public good. And you say that students get a degree, I don't know anything about the reality of the market. Well, we are sending you 2 of our best students. Show them the reality of the market. And when you write the final report, tell us what we should be teaching them that we are not teaching them. And we will consider that information for creating lifelong learning courses, to update the master programs. So this is your chance to break the cycle. And also, students can suggest companies or institutions where they want to do the internship. So sometimes a student says, I live in this small village and have to go back home for the summer. I cannot really afford to be paying the apartment for all the summer holidays. Can I do my internship in my town, in a company in my town, or for example in my town hall, or some place that is in my town,
I know the place. I'm already being spoken with the mayor, who happens to be my neighbor, and I have told them, can I come here? I will be doing it during my summer holidays. So many students suggest places. For example, students that are working part-time. We have students that are working part-time at the international airport. And they say, can I do my internship at the international airport? You know, I have already been working there for 2-3 summers. I know the place. Can I get, you know, this experience dealing with international visitors, tourists? I have to practice my English, blah, blah, blah. Yes, sure. Just, you know, give me a telephone contact. I will address them and tell them how many students are you willing to get. It gets time. It needs time. But in these cases, the mouth to mouth is the best publicity, is the best advertising. If you have a small company working at the airport and tells other companies at the airport, you know, we got this girl that she was brilliant, hardworking, she was involved, the other company will say, pass me the phone number. I want to contact them. I want to see how it goes. We had a difficult time a year, 2 years ago, when the national government said that students in an internship should get their social security paid as any other worker. In Spain, all workers must have their social security paid by the company. So the government said, for the internship experience to be considered part of the working life of that person, it means that they should have social security paid. They do not depend anymore on their parents' social security. And that meant that many companies panic, especially small companies. You know, they said, we cannot afford that. If we could afford that, we would hire an employee. You know, but that has been put on a standstill. I don't know what's the situation right now, but no changes. Yeah, that's the usual thing with government stuff. Decisions that don't go well, they may get stuck there for a couple of years. But that was a bad moment, because that year was difficult to get internships for all the students, because many companies were panicking. You know, I will accept 1-2 students, but I cannot afford to be paying the social security for all of them. But in general, most companies have a positive attitude. We always explain to them, consider this as a human resources activity. You are pre-recruiting future personnel. And in general, the situation, the attitude is positive.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? I see one from the back.
Hi, good morning. My name is Margaret, and I'm from the Legal Education Board, a regulatory body regulating all law schools in the Philippines, except UP due to its charter. So, LEB is rolling out a new policy on the National Legal Education Research Agenda soon. My question is, it's not really a question, but may we ask the best practices from Erasmus program or EU universities in promoting the development of legal research, in assessing the effectiveness of research effort and identifying gaps between or both for law student researcher as well as the professor or thesis supervisor. Thank you.
You are the law teacher, not me.
Thank you. I think it's a very interesting idea, because at the university, both doctoral students and professors, we perform research, and maybe this research does not match with what the industry needs. Within the European program, I think that there is not a point of connection between that. So university professors, we perform our research considering what we think that's useful, and we propose our students to perform their research about what we think is needed from outside. But I think it would be a good point to perform some kind of direct connection, no? So that we have a report from idea of what is needed or how should we direct our research focus or so. I don't know if that was the question itself or if you want me to...
Something I didn't mention when I was speaking about the thesis is that if you are working at a company or an institution, you may do what is called an industrial thesis, and that means that you get a tutor, an academic tutor at the university, and then you get a professional tutor at the company you are working in, and the company will suggest what research they are interested in. So you focus your thesis on that, right?
Actually, if you just
yes,
give me
sure.
a moment. Actually, in the Faculty of Law of the University of Malaga, we are working properly on this industrial. We are not industrial studies, industrial PhD with the National Commission for Competition. So they are assuming some students that are performing their PhD, and they suggest us which topic do they want us to cover in their research. So they perform their internship within the National Commission of Competition, and they study in their PhD one topic that is relevant for the institution. This has also the advantage that these students get access to documents and information that is not publicly disclosure. So the results of this thesis is much more interesting than the one that could a professor do that does have no that doesn't have access to this information and to these files.
Think, for example, that students who are engineers working in an engineering company, and the company says, we have this problem and we don't know how to solve it. And the engineer says, I'm going to do a thesis on that problem and how to solve it. The company is providing the student with all the data, right? That this is what we are doing at the company, and these are the results we are getting, and we don't know why it's not working. And so the research is the practical side with the industrial tutor at the company, and then the academics tutor is providing all the theoretical knowledge on the matter. Or think, for example, of police officers who want to be promoted higher in rank, and they do a doctoral thesis on, imagine, for example, drug dealing in the Costa del Sol. The professor from the criminology side will provide him with the academic knowledge, the theoretical knowledge. The police, where he's working, will provide him with the data, real data of what they do. We apprehend so much cocaine every year, and we apprehend so much hashish or marijuana, whatever, and these are the profile of the people we arrest, and all that. So in that case, because the institution says we will really need more information on this aspect, and the student says, I'm going to research on that aspect. When this, because we are a public university and we emphasize open access to all the research developed at public universities, when your thesis has been defended, the thesis is uploaded in an application that is free open access. But in those cases, the doctoral candidate may apply for his or her thesis not to be made public for a certain period of time. For example, in the case of the technologists, in the case of the engineers, they may say, this information is being used to design a computing program or to design an app. Or in the case of criminology, this is designed, we are using information of cases that are still in court. So do not make this thesis public. We use the word that the thesis, we say, has been kept kidnapped for a certain period of time. That means that is not released to the public because the information included there is sensitive. Because maybe they are waiting to get a trademark or waiting to get register the design of a robot or the design of an application, or because it's sensitive information. And so that is not made public for a certain number of years to increase collaboration with companies, institutions, and so on.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
My question is for Miriam.
Yes.
I would like to ask about European credit transfer system. Is ECTS.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you removing
Yeah.
the mask.
You said one credit is equivalent to 24 hours for the student.
Yes.
Broken down as follows. 7.5 hours of class attendance, 2.5 hours of evaluation activities, writing essays, and then 15 hours of studying and homework. How do you determine, or how would you know that the student has complied with 15 hours of studying and homework? Who checks this?
Hey, it's not that we check it. It's that when the professors design the syllabus, they calculate how much time is going to be needed to study the syllabus, study the notes that are provided in class, do the homework that they are giving the students. So, for example, imagine that I'm teaching a 6-credit course. So when I'm designing the course, I know I'm going to have 45, 50 hours in class with them. So I prepare a syllabus and I know how much I can say on that, right? So I may not go overboard. So if I'm preparing the syllabus and I say, okay, I'm going to be, I teach 19th century USA literature. So I say, I would love to study with them every single important novel written in the States in the 19th century. No, Miriam, that's not possible. Okay? You can only do this and that. Plus, my course is taught in the second year, where my students are not yet fully fluent in English. So I cannot choose as compulsory reading Moby Dick, because they will need about 6 years to finish reading Moby Dick. Right? Why? Because it's very long, it has a very complicated vocabulary, and because 99% of my students don't give a damn about whale hunting. And so for them, they don't even know the vocabulary about whale-hunted vessels in Spanish, even less in English. So I, as professor, when I am deciding what are going to be the compulsory reading, I have to eliminate Moby Dick. Instead, I will choose a couple of poems by Emily Dickinson. And I will choose a short story by Edgar Allan Poe. Why? Because they are shorter. Because they can comply with that homework. So when I tell them, for next week, read at home The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, they can do it during the weekend. Why? Because it's 6-7 pages. They can do that. I cannot expect them to read on a weekend a 500 pages novel. Not unless I want them to hate me forever. And I will have to pay for the psychologist after 500 pages of whale hunting. Right? So it is the role of the professor to say, if my course has so many credits, what is the amount of teaching, and it has this amount of teaching hours, how much material I can explain in those hours. And if I'm allocating so many hours for homework, how much reading can I expect them to do during those hours? And if I say they must do all the evaluating materials in 2.5 hours, I cannot tell them, next week you must hand in a 5,000 words essay, and the following week you have to hand in whatever, this oral presentation, and the following week, no. That is going to take for them more than 2.5 hours. Maybe a student from year 4 could do it, but a student from year 2, they cannot do it. They do not have the fluency in English. It's a foreign language for them. They do not have the fluency. They are still not familiar with reading in English. Especially, they are not familiar with reading in 17th, 18th, and 19th century English. They are not even familiar with 17th, 18th, and 19th century Spanish. So that's the difficult part for the professors, to get that level of empathy with your students, to see how much they can do, how much they cannot do. And the usual complaint when we are teachers together is, oh, each generation is worse than the previous one. It's partly true, right? Because now anything that is longer than a Twitter message is too long for them, right? It's partly true because students now are less used to reading. They are more used to films and, audiovisual material. But I think it's also because we are getting older. When I began teaching at university, I was 23, and my students were 18. My students are still 18, I'm 55. So the gap keeps getting bigger. But I have to keep that level of empathy to see what is my students' level of English, my students' level of reading skills. Many students, you cannot expect them, for example, in things like literature, with the level of fluency in English in year 2, you cannot expect them to understand the irony of Jane Austen. They will not get it. Many native speakers do not get it, the irony of it. And they don't have the ability of reading between the lines. And you have to tell them, come on. So sometimes I feel like, that TV series, CSI? Yeah. Well, sometimes I feel like I am a literary CSI. You know, read between the lines. Why is the narrator giving you this information? What is she trying to say? Oh, I didn't saw that. I didn't realize. You need to know that they are not that good with their reading skills at, as, for example, we were 20 years ago. Because nowadays, younger generations read less than we did when we were younger. And that's why I said, when we first implemented the bachelor programs and the master programs, after 4 or 5 years, we had to go meet all the teachers and say, guys, let's revise the list of, the syllabus. Let's revise the compulsory readings, because maybe we are going over the top. And it takes adjusting.
I'm sorry, I have to ask this question, and I want the law professor to kindly answer it. Just jumping from that discussion, how do you now allocate the number of units, for example, as to time management with respect? Let's take, for example, you're teaching succession or even evidence. Here in the Philippines, it's a 3-unit course. Succession is a 3-unit course. How would you now allocate the time preparation of the student following the discussions of Dr. Rodriguez?
I think it's a matter of learning from your fails. So 1 year you think that you are making a fair planification of the course, but that year when you are explaining, you say that you are in the last week of the course and still are 3 lessons less. So this is the experience that give you to change the syllabus for the next course. So you decide to reorient everything. The fact is that we normally have the timing of each course previously given. So for example, I know that my course on industrial property would last 6 ACTS credits. And I have to design the contents considering that the students should cover all the contents in that period of time. So maybe I leave some topics outside of the program and they have to study them in an LLM or outside the classes, but I have to adapt myself to the time that we have.
So please correct me if I'm wrong, so there's no really scientific way of determining how many hours should you give for the reading preparation of the student, how many hours should be given to this topic. All we have is more or less a general idea of what topic will be covered per week. And hopefully the students will be able to be with us when we journey through the weeks. Now, as to the number of cases they have to read, we just have to read the cases to ensure that if we can read them, then the assumption is the students can read them, which I think is wrong, no? But the students can read more, I guess, but not the professors. The only reason why I asked is because if, like what you said, if there's a scientific way of dividing the number of units and then vis-a-vis the time allocation, that would be very good, especially for law students and how we are to prepare a syllabus for the SEM. So, that's the reason why I had to ask a law professor, because in law school, I think it's different, no? The approach might be different.
That's properly what I do, no? I try to see how many weeks do I have to teach, and I divide the contents into that number of lessons. So maybe a lesson on patent law is 2 lessons, lesson 6 and lesson 7. Why? Because lesson 6 is for the 6th week, and lesson 7 is for the 7th week of the course. So I try to divide the number of lessons with the time that I have. So I know how much time do I need each week and how many activities are the students supposed to do for each week.
Think that each course lasts 1 semester.
Yes.
Each semester has 15 weeks.
Right.
In each week, you have maybe 3 hours. So you have to do your mathematics.
That's the problem. I'm sorry, this is based on UP experience. I'm teaching civil procedure. We have 15 weeks. I have to cover 71 rules. You divide the 71 rules by 15 weeks, there's no way really you can finish it. Because Rule 39 alone will take you 1.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I'm very intent on listening on how to devise the time, because I know the students are having difficulty also catching up. And we cannot stop the students from asking questions. In fact, we encourage the students to ask questions because that's the best way to learn.
Yes.
For us to be able to drive the cobwebs away. But given that there are only 15 weeks and you have to teach 71 rules, mathematically it's easy to devise, but the question is the substantive delivery,
Yes.
of the subject.
What what I do is I prepare in advance my class notes, timing myself. If I have a 1 hour class, this is what I'm going to tell my students during that hour. And there are things I will just mention, but I will not go deep on it, simply because I don't have the time if I want to cover everything. And as they have to make a team project as part of the final grade, I will give them a list of all the items I didn't cover during the year. And I tell them, you organize yourself in teams of 6, 8 students. And each of the teams chooses to develop an essay or a PowerPoint presentation or a video or a TikTok, whatever makes you happy, on one of these topics. So this topic I didn't have to develop is there for you, and this other one, and this other one. And so the students prepare, organize themselves in groups. It's a good way to make students know each other, work together, and they develop those elements that I didn't have time during my classes.
Another interesting thing that I think is a point that we have to consider is that the Bologna process has also changed the way we should understand teaching. We normally think about teaching as a magistral lesson. I am going to the class and I do the whole speech, and the students must learn everything from my words. From the Bologna point of view, this has to change. For example, a good way to prepare lessons is that you give the lesson in advance to your students. The students have the whole week to read the lesson, and in class just answer questions, do practical cases, and so on. This could be a good way to change the things. So one of the things the Bologna process is most concerned with is in changing the way we teach. Not just having the professor speaking all the time, but get the involvement of the students. That was what Yeki said before. You have to involve the students in order to get their attention and maybe there is some lessons that you just can't cover in lessons because you have a limited time, but the students can perform that by themselves. You have to give them the skills to prepare their own learning. And this is especially relevant for law studies, since legislation and the rules are changing all the time. If the students are given the skills to build up their skills and their knowledge, they have the tools they will need in their whole life, not just the commercial law of the year 2023. They will learn the future.
I totally agree with you. The way it's done in UP, I think there was a student of mine, now a lawyer, so that's Exhibit A. So I guess what I did is pretty okay because she's now a lawyer, no? But just to end it with a happy note, the Legal Education Board and the Commissioner is here. I think one thing they did that was very well received by the law schools, no, is that insofar as civil procedure is concerned, it used to be 5 units. Here in UP, it's 5. What the legal education did was to break it into 2 parts. Civil law 1, 3 units, and then civil law 2 will be another 3 units in different semesters. So the students can really learn the basic rudiments, of civil law. And of course, it will give the professor time to explore other avenues of teaching, no? Not just the usual Socratic method or lecture, because of the time given and the scope now is narrower. No? it gives the teacher and the teacher, a means of developing her own teaching skills. So I think reducing the number of units per SEM would help a lot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, all good things have to come to an end, and this is at that point in time already. So this is the end of our program for today. Thank you once again. I think we should give our speaker and our reactor another round of applause for that very spirited open forum. So thank you once again to all of our participants here and online for contributing to this very fruitful discussion, this open forum. We're done for today, but I do have one final announcement to make. The venue for tomorrow's program will be different. It will not be here, but rather in Ambion Room, which if you come outside that door, it's to the right. So that will be where the registration and the event proper will be tomorrow. So what better way of ending this program than with free lunch? So please join us for food and refreshments. These are outside and is available for everybody who is attending here in person. So see you tomorrow at Ambion Room for our final CALESA session and on the application of the principles of the Bologna process to university academic programs. The May 10 program tomorrow will start at 9 a.m. Thank you once again.